What is going on, GBA? I am the Confusion, and welcome back for week 11 of the GBA for season 8. I know last week we did not have the opportunity to see that. It was recorded, just not by me and Xilicks, or Xilicks and I, because we didn't quite have the opportunity. There was a lot of trouble, recording because of time constraints and things that were going on last week for the both of us. There was an episode recorded by Turbo and Bird, but unfortunately the slides for those videos are not completed yet. Hopefully we can get that out to you guys. But for now we have week 11. Xilicks and I are available, so of course, Xilicks, introduce yourself.
Salve GBA fans, it's Xilicks here, and we are recording this separately this week, so if some bits sound a little bit choppy, that's why. But again, we're both busy and have time constraints, so we're doing our best to get this video out, and I hope you guys enjoy.
And yeah, we are really excited to be here. Last 2 weeks, I believe this is the last week before the final week of the regular season. There are 12 weeks in a season for the GBA, and since this is week 11, clearly we are wrapping up. So we encourage you guys to get excited and see what's going to happen when it comes to playoff, because after the regular season, we are not quite done yet. But you know what? There are battles to look at, so let's hop in. The first battle we're going to look at is the San Francisco Giants up against the San Diego Chargers. Again, keep in mind that all these battles are rematches, which creates a different level, different layer, as some would say, to the game these guys are playing. Because it's one thing to prep and battle for a team. It's another thing to prep and battle for a team that you've already prepped and battled for. So, again, very interesting. So let's see how these two players match up. The Geo is bringing Mew, Shaman, Blacephalon, Mega Scissor, Ditto, and Toxapex. Emvee bringing Tapu Koko, Mega Pinsir, Empoleon, Gligar, Silvally, and Magmotar. What a fast game this was. Let's just get into it. First turn, we have the HP Fire coming out of Empoleon and one-shots Mega Scissor with so much speed investment. Huge surprise to Geo, but the next thing that comes out is Mew with Focus Punch, being able to kill the Empoleon as it sets up rocks. Really good, especially since right after that, Koko comes in and U-turns, allowing Mew to get up its own rocks. Emvee then is going to pivot around Mew a little bit and then finally go into the Magmortar, where in the recreation, Mew gets burned using Ice Punch into Flame Body. It doesn't really matter because Mew is going to click Explosion, kill itself, and bring down Magmortar with it. Immediately after, though, Blacephalon is going to come out and also explode, killing the Silvally. So, I mean, 2 Pokemon down. That's how fast this game went. It was hilarious. But now that Blacephalon and Silvally both went down, both players can now pick a Pokemon to send in without knowing what the opponent will send in, and that's going to be the Mega Pinsir up against the Shaman, which is going to force Geo to switch into that Toxapex and get 2 KO'd with the frustration thanks to Rocks. Ditto being able to come in and revenge that thing, although Emvee is going to make the smart play by switching into Gligar, since it still has the opportunity to defog. Of course, the Rocky Helmet on the Toxapex was able to bring Mega Pinsir below half, which, if the Gligar could not defog, could have been a very risky play. But Gligar is going to be able to defog as Shaman clicks HP Ice. It's not enough to kill, so that defog was really important. Though when it comes down to it, Shaman finally kills the Gligar. Pinsir comes in to revenge the Shaman. Ditto comes in, copies the Mega Pinsir, gets the speed tie on the quick attack, assuming, right, that Emvee went for the quick attack as well. And that's going to bring it so that the Mega Pinsir is up against the Tapu Koko. Tapu Koko would normally be able to click Thunderbolt and completely win this game for Emvee. But of course, the Quick Claw is going to pop because it was not a Choice Scarf Ditto, rather a Quick Claw variant. And that is going to allow the Mega Pinsir to click Earthquake up against the Tapu Koko and allow Geo to take the 1-0 rather than Emvee. Now, I know this is a controversial battle because of how people view Quick Claw. Some people say, hey, it's an item you can use. I mean, it's a part of the game, right? You have the opportunity, a 1 in 5 chance to go first. I mean, it doesn't seem that broken, but I mean, in this case, it just worked out really well. Of course, the other side, a lot of people will argue that it's just unfair and it just adds hacks to the matches. In my personal humble opinion, I kind of see both sides, I'm not going to lie, but overall it is what happened, and Geo is going to be able to snatch up a kill. Overall, whether you agree with it or not, his reaction to that Quick Claw popping is amazing.
Alright, taking a look at our next battle, we have the Philadelphia Scissors versus the Montreal HABSOLS. The Scissors have the roster of Nihilego, Greninja, Drifblim, Slurpuff, Tapu Bulu, and Victini, while the HABSOLS have the Scolipede, Zapdos, Zoroark, Milotic, Sylveon, and Fortress. So this is a pretty quick battle between Chimpact and Aster. The last time these two faced off, we saw the Nihilego clean up the late game with the speed increasing Beast Boost. This time we are also going to see that Nihilego sweep, but it will be a little bit different this time around. So starting off the battle, we have the Scolipede against the Slurpuff. Aster is going to Aqua Tail right away, and unfortunately he's going to miss as the Slurpuff is going to go for a Flamethrower. Now, the reason that this miss is unfortunate is the Slurpuff is carrying the Focus Sash, so the Aqua Tail would have broken the Sash without actually popping the Sash, so that way the Slurpuff would not have gotten the Unburden boost. However, we are going to see the Poison Jab come out on the following turn, which will pop that Focus Sash, giving the Slurpuff the Unburden boost, and it's able to knock out the Scolipede. Following this, the Slurpuff is able to get huge damage against the incoming Zapdos using the Endeavor, as the Zapdos is just going to Volt Switch to kill the Slurpuff and go into the Fortress. Chimp is then going to send out his Greninja and set up a layer of spikes against the incoming Milotic, and then we're going to see some pivoting on either side until the Drifblim is in, going for a Stockpile and then knocking out the incoming Zapdos with the toxic damage. Aster then won't be able to knock out that Drifblim with his Zoroark, which gives Chimp the opportunity to Baton Pass to his Nihilego, and he's going to clean up the game right there, getting 4 kills. So the hacks at the start with the Aqua Tail miss, it didn't necessarily make or break the game, but it definitely could have changed some things up since it happened so early, and it really played into Chimp's hands to allow him to get a quick sweep at the end of that battle.
I think we should hop into the next match here, which is going to be the Columbus Chew up against the Detroit Steel Wings Chase, bringing Lycanroc, Dusk, Fagrigus, Kangaskhan, Tangela, Infernape, and the Suicune, and the Columbus Chew and Coach Z bringing the Fearow, Hippowdon, Sneasel, Mega Gardevoir, Porygon 2, and Manaphy. Now, the way this game works is pretty similar to the way their last match worked. Fagrigus turn 1 is able to get a knockoff onto Porygon 2, and because Porygon 2 misses its Toxic, allows the Cofagrigus to get 2 layers of Toxic Spikes on the ground, which is going to be super important in whittling all the Pokemon on his team, being that they're all grounded, barring the Fearow, so that's going to be amazing. And of course, Fearow not being too threatening of a Pokemon is going to help him a ton. Suicune is able to come in on the Porygon 2 and sub up and set up a lot on that Porygon, being able to kill it eventually with a Surf. However, Suicune does get very weakened. Not weakened enough, though, for Sneasel's knockoff to kill it, allowing Suicune to get yet another kill with that Surf and pick up 2 kills very early on in this match. Fearow is going to come out and is going to get decent damage with the Supersonic Sky Strike on the Cofagrigus, and just some good damage onto the Kangaskhan with Drill Peck. King is weakened, obviously, by things like Hippowdon's Toxic and Earthquake, but manages a Wish into the Suicune, and that Wish into the Suicune allows him to get a big Surf onto Mega Gardevoir, specifically 2, to the point where those Toxic Spikes can make it so that it dies to the next hit. Chase is going to choose to save his Suicune and sack off the Cofagrigus. Next up, we see Scarf Tangela. Very interesting Pokemon to come to the team. I mean, something you really don't see too often. Is going to revenge that Mega Gardevoir with the Giga Drain. But not only that, when Fearow comes out, Chase has Balls of Steel and stays into Giga Drain the Fearow for the 2-hit KO, as Coach Z is going to make a misprediction with the Drill Run. Chase at that point just has to finish off the Manaphy and Hippowdon, and thanks to the Toxic Spikes and really some great predictions around the Choice Scarf Manaphy, Chase is going to be able to pick up this game in a 3-0 safe fashion, although both teams are out of the race, and this battle doesn't make a huge impact when it comes to the playoff race. It was really an entertaining game to watch, so I encourage you guys to take a look.
Moving on to our next matchup, we have the Milwaukee Bewares versus the Florida Gators. The Bewares have the roster of the Entei, Conkeldurr, Jellicent, Forgus, Bronzong, and Tangrowth, while the Gators have the Flygon, Mega Altaria, Crobat, Heatran, Azumarill, and Klefki. Now, you may be looking at the screen and thinking 5-3, that's odd, was there another forfeit? No, this was an incredibly long game that runs the timer's full duration, and it mainly boils down to Wolfie's Jellicent set. So I'm not going to be covering this match as we normally would, as we'd probably be here for like 20 minutes, so I'm just going to cover the gist of what happened. So the Jellicent set is it has the Acid Armor, Recover, Scald, and Taunt. It's carrying a Lumberry, so this Jellicent's going to be able to sit on the field for a very long amount of time. Gator's really only plan to deal with this Jellicent is to try to get a Toxic on it so it can't just sit there and continue clicking Scald and Recover. But since the Jellicent is running quite a bit of speed, it's actually able to go for Taunt on things like the Heatran to prevent the Toxic. So Gator has to taunt the Jellicent with his Crobat to prevent the Jellicent's taunt so he's able to Toxic with Heatran. But since Wolfie is carrying the Lumberry, Gator will have to do this maneuver twice, and on the second time he's going to attempt to get that Toxic, we are going to see the Conkeldurr come in to get that Guts boost and do massive damage with Facade. We're then going to see quite a lot of swapping from both sides. During this time, Wolfie's going to be able to get up his Stealth Rocks, which is going to hurt Gator as he tries to pivot around the Jellicent. Later on, the Bronzong will set up the Trick Room, taking down the Azumarill, and then swapping to the Conkeldurr, knocking out the Flygon and the Klefki. Once the Trick Room runs out, the Altaria will pick off the Conkeldurr, but at this point in the game, being up 5-3, Wolfie is able to just continue walling with the Jellicent to secure the win with the timer. So unlike forfeiting or the running that we've seen earlier in the season, the score for this game reflects how the differentials counted. So technically this is treated like a 2-0 win for Wolfie instead of a 5-0 win. So Wolfie is going to gain +2 differential while Gator is going to lose -2 differential. So again, this is different from forfeits in where had Gator forfeited, it would have been a 5-0. So obviously, you know, letting the timer run out and not running is the better idea for his differential.
So hopping into the next match, we have Lars versus Jilt, Borussia Donphan, up against the Kansas City JIRACHEFS. Lars bringing Tapu Fini, Tornadus Incarnate, Cobalion, Mega Manectric, Delphox, and Kyurem Black. And Jilt bringing Seismitoad, Hydreigon, Durant, Aerodactyl, Mega Venusaur, and the Gardevoir. Now, let's talk about what happened this game. The first thing that happens is the same setup as their first match, which is Hydreigon versus the Tapu Fini. Nature's Madness going into the Venusaur switch, and Venusaur clicking Nature Power against the Kyurem Black. That's what happened in the first one. In this case, Venusaur instead goes for the Leech Seed, which allows Seismitoad to easily take an Ice Beam, thanks to it not only being Spadef, but the lefties in the seed allow it to really take no damage. What that's going to allow Seismitoad to do is click Knockoff on the incoming Tapu Fini. Lars predicting these Stealth Rocks, trying to ensure that he can get a safe defog off, is actually a trap, because that thing is going to Infestation the Tapu Fini, and along with Earthquake, allows it to kill the Tapu Fini, which of course is really good for the Hydreigon, making it very challenging for Lars to take it on. Of course, he does have that Assault Vest Delphox, but it can only take so many hits, and it's interesting to see how he let that go down early on. It was good prep on Jilt's end, but the next set of problems that's really going to come towards Lars in this case is that Aerodactyl. I mean, the Stone Edge and the Earthquake is near perfect, super effective coverage against his team, especially after that Tapu Fini went down. But Cobalion is going to come in, take that Earthquake, and Lars not predicting the Scarf, is going to take a big Iron Head, and although it lives, the Life Orb recoil is going to kill the Aerodactyl. So double down with the Cobalion and Aerodactyl, and that's really going to allow AV Delphox to really switch in early on onto that Gardevoir, and Jolt is going to be forced to make some interesting moves around this Delphox, because it really cleans up the rest of his team, and although it doesn't do much damage to Gardevoir, Gardevoir is really not doing much, unless it's clicking Shadow Ball to that Delphox. Jilt, though, making a good pivot between Venusaur and Hydreigon, taking the Dazzling Gleam into the Psychic, allowing him to really pivot around very well, get in the Hydreigon safely. Jilt does have to sack the Venusaur, though, to the Delphox Psychic when it comes back in, which is troublesome because Jilt is slowly losing responses to that Delphox. And moreover, losing that Mega Venusaur lost him another response to that Mega Manectric, which we'll see is going to come into play later on. The Durant, though, when it comes in, is going to get up a substitute, and along with leftovers, is going to do a ton of damage to Tornadus with a big Iron Head. However, not enough to kill, and the threat of Heat Wave is there, so the Durant is going to be forced to switch out. He switches out to the Hydreigon on the Tailwind, but after clicking U-turn, it was not enough to kill the Tornadus, which was huge because it allowed Tornadus to get a big HP Ice off, which is going to matter later on. But not only that, the fact that Hydreigon couldn't kill with U-turn made it so that it gave Lars another Prankster Tailwind later on in the match. Gardevoir going to click Shadow Ball, which gives Kyurem a free switch in, a free sub, as well as the Gardevoir is forced to switch out, which allows some pretty good damage on Durant, putting it into Volt Switch range. Tornadus is going to be able to finally come in, get one more Tailwind after the Kyurem Black is sacked to the Durant. And then after a Volt Switch on Hydreigon with Manectric, I mean, Manectric is really just in a good position. Manectric comes in and kills the Durant after that last, Tailwind. Kills the Hydreigon as well, and the Gardevoir, my bad. The Gardevoir too, since it couldn't kill with the Shadow Ball, but it had to be locked in to do enough damage to Delphox later on. So clearly we see that Lars did play this game well enough to, even though he had really quite the team disadvantage, to just play around Lars' team, and I think he played the game very, very well. So props to him. The interesting plays that Jolt made, I think, put him in the back foot, like clicking U-turn, not killing that Tornadus was big, allowing him to get another Tailwind up. The game could have been different otherwise, but that's what happened. Lars takes a 2-0, and I think confirms his playoff spot. I could be wrong, but I do believe it confirms his playoff position, so that is really, really cool.
Okay, for our next battle, we have the New Orleans Pelipers and the Tampa Bay Luxrays. The Pelipers have the roster of Tornadus T, Hariyama, Garchomp, Incineroar, Tentacruel, and Mega Diancie, while the Luxrays have the Snorlax, Weavile, Slowking, Palossand, Keldeo, and Registeel. Starting this battle, John is going to opt to set up his Toxic Spikes, a strategy that has gone very well for him earlier in the season, as we are going to see Mono Slowking come out, which will threaten out that Tentacruel to the Tornadus. We are going to see both sides setting up a little bit. The Slowking is going for a Calm Mind, and then the Tornadus is going for a Bulk Up. We do see the rest come out from the Tornadus to pop the Chesto Berry, which will boost the power of its acrobatics. However, a big time Hydro Vortex will come off. It won't be enough to kill the Torn, but the Torn will only be able to get off one attack with the acrobatics before going down to the Scald on the following turn. After this, we will see the Incineroar come out, which will be a huge threat to Mono's team, as he does not have a reliable switch in to either of Incineroar's stab, except for the Keldeo, but that Keldeo is not going to want to be taking many hits alongside being poisoned from the Toxic Spikes earlier. It's really going to limit the longevity of this Mon, which is exactly what Pokemon will need to win later on. So Mono is going to bring in his Registeel, expecting the Tentacruel, which was the correct play as the Tentacruel did come out. This will give him the rocks, and then as the Garchomp is brought out to get up rocks for Pokemon's side, we will see the Garchomp take a huge Ice Punch from the Registeel, but that Garchomp is going to go for an Earthquake on the incoming Palossand, which will be enough damage for the Garchomp to pick it off with a devastating Drake. This will bring back in the Keldeo, and Pokemon is going to attempt to preserve his Garchomp, but he will have to sack it off a few turns later to the Slowking. Following this, Pokemon makes a slight misplay of U-turning on the incoming Registeel with his Incineroar. Had he just outright attacked, he could have potentially knocked out the Registeel there, and then he would have been able to preserve his Tentacruel, but instead, we are going to see him lose the Tentacruel, but he will be able to kill that Registeel right after. However, since he's lost the Tentacruel, this does limit his switch-ins to Keldeo, and Keldeo now has a very real opportunity to win this game. Following this, however, we are going to see that Weavile come out and take big damage from the rocks, as well as the Rocky Helmet damage against the Hariyama, which will result in that Weavile going down, but it was able to put Hariyama into range of the Slowking, and at this point, John is going to decide to send in his Diancie, because his play is, if he doesn't Mega Evolve, he goes in Diancie, he gets up a Calm Mind, he will take less damage from the Slowking's Scald, and then he'll be able to knock out the Slowking with a Moonblast, which he's going to do. And then the Keldeo is going to come in, and at this point John can pretty safely win the game, because all he has to do is click Protect once, which he does. He clicks Protect the first time, obviously blocking Keldeo's damage, forcing Keldeo to take 2 rounds of poison at least, which will be enough to kill it. Pokemon will be fortunate enough to get the double protect, which will allow Diancie to survive against the Keldeo as it will go down to poison, and then he will be able to defeat the incoming Snorlax, securing him the 2-0 victory. Had he not gotten the double protect at the end there, the Incineroar, I'm pretty sure, would have still won him the game, but it gave him the 2-1 victory instead of the 1-0.
And the next matchup we're going to head into is Tom versus Necrostevo, right? We have the San Jose Sharpedos and the Victorian Shadows, and Tom bringing Landorus, Therian, Rotom Wash, Scizor, Meloetta, Rhyperior, and Musharna for the first time, and the Victorian Shadows and Necrostevo bringing the Diggersby, Hawlucha, Araquanid, Metagross, Rotom Heat, and Togekiss. I encourage you guys to first off watch that video on the Victorian Shadows side, Necrostevo, because his intro is phenomenal, but I won't spoil it. You guys go watch it. I'm sure you will get a kick out of it. But yeah, let's talk about the actual game, because this is something I'm actually interested to talk about. We have the Araquanid first up against the Rotom Wash. Rotom Wash getting a nice clean Volt Switch off, but Araquanid able to Mirror Coat a Volt Switch onto the Scizor, doing a lot of damage. Scizor, being faster and being bulky enough to live, is able to roost into a U-turn back into the Rotom Wash. And Rotom is going to spam Defog as Necro is going to spam Webs until he makes an aggressive switch into Diggersby to get a big return onto Musharna and kill it with the second one. So Musharna, being what looked like a decent response to Hawlucha, is now down. Speaking of that, Hawlucha, it's going to set up an SD right onto Rhyperior. Unfortunately, Rock Blast hits 2 times. It looks like 5 would have easily killed that Hawlucha, but unfortunately 2 times does not do enough, to the point where Hawlucha's high jump kick is able to get a clean knockout onto that Rhyperior. Hawlucha is also going to sub on the Landorus's Fly, a very ballsy play, especially since the fact that Landorus could have Z-Mood, but the fact that Substitute was there, you know, did save him, obviously. Not only that, but bringing on that Substitute allows him to break the Citrus Berry, activating a stronger Acrobatics. It also lets him get to +3 with another Swords Dance. Of course, after the Intimidate, you know, negating the +2 he originally had to +1, adding +2, making him at +3, and allowing him to kill Landorus with the Acrobatics. Rotom comes in, protects on a high jump kick, great play, and is able to do a ton of damage to that Hawlucha, but then clicks Protect again, which allows it so that Hawlucha 2-hit KOs with Acrobatics, because that second Protect fails. So Rotom goes down quickly too. The Scizor, of course, is going to kill Hawlucha, and Togekiss is going to come out, scare out that Scizor, and 2 Flamethrowers, plus a burn into Meloetta, puts it in range of Quick Attack from Diggersby, and then really, Scizor couldn't do anything to the Rotom Heat Switch in, which allows him to overheat even with the Aqua Berry, killing that thing. I really think this game was quick. You know, Necro played it decently well. I mean, he made some really good plays with the Hawlucha overall, which was what impressed me the most. Also, the fact that Tom didn't really play around that Hawlucha as well as he could have. I just felt like he wasn't ridiculously underprepared. It just felt like he messed up with the Rotom Wash play with clicking Protect twice. But overall, I mean, I'm really happy that at this point, Week 11, there are no teams that have no wins, right? Coach Z and Necrostevo, the last 2 teams that did not have wins. Coach Z actually picking up the win, and then Necrostevo being the last team to finally pick up a win. You know, obviously he's not getting into playoffs, but the fact that he picked up a win, you know, warms my heart a little bit.
Next up, we are going to have a pretty cool matchup. Some very interesting sets were brought versus, in the matchup of the Bronx Bearticks versus the Melbourne Rotoms. The Bearticks have the roster of Mega Gyarados, Licky, Whimsicott, Magnezone, Acelgor, and Necrozma, while the Melbourne Rotoms have the Pelipper, Kartana, Mega Swampert, Ludicolo, Kingdra, and Mimikyu. So starting off the battle, it is going to be that Acelgor versus the Mimikyu. The Acelgor is going to go for Toxic Spikes, while the Mimikyu just Shadow Claws. Then Joey's going to pull a switch to his Magnezone as the Mimikyu goes for a Swords Dance, and he's pretty confident with his Magnezone, and he plans on having it be an offensive threat. So he is just going to Volt Switch, knowing that he could take a +2 Shadow Sneak. However, we do not see the Shadow Sneak. Instead, we see the Shadow Claw, which will take out the incoming Acelgor. Then the Magnezone is going to come back in. Since it has broken that disguise, it is going to take the +2 Shadow Sneak and then knock out the Mimikyu with a Flash Cannon. We are going to see the Pelipper come out, and then also the Gyarados on the side of the Bearticks. The Pelipper, however, is going to U-turn directly into the Kingdra, which is going to have Joey swap to his Licky as the Kingdra goes for a Hidden Power Electric. The Kingdra is then going to Draco Meteor as the Licky is just going to attack with Return, putting the Kingdra at a low enough amount of HP that Joey can safely go for the Flamethrower with his Licky, and it would be enough to knock out the Kingdra. However, the main reason he flamethrowered was on the off chance that the Kartana came in thinking that could safely set up against the Licky, and we are going to see that Kartana come in and take the flamethrower. And even in the rain, it doesn't matter because the Licky's ability is going to ignore the rain. That flamethrower is going to decimate the Kartana, which is a huge loss for Aaron just right away. He does not want that Kartana gone, and there it is, gone very early in the battle. We are going to see the Swampert come out, and the Gyarados is going to come in, which can take hits from the Swampert relatively well. The Swampert is going to get up a power-up punch to +2, but unfortunately, the Swampert is not going to be able to do enough damage to the Gyarados, and the Swampert is going to go down to Gyarados' Waterfall. We are going to see the Ludicolo come out, and the Whimsicott is going to be Joey switching, taking a Giga Drain pretty well. He's then going to switch back into the Gyarados as the Ludicolo Ice Beams. And at this point, I believe the rain runs out on this turn or the turn before. So Aaron is going to go into his Pelipper, and Joey is going to properly predict that and go for the Thunder with his Mega Gyarados, destroying that Pelipper. So we've seen some very interesting sets taking care of a lot of the threatening Mons or good defensive Mons or utility Mons on the Rotom's team. And then, following that, we're going to see the Ludicolo come back and take a Hurricane from the Gyarados. The Hurricane was not enough to knock it out, and the Ludicolo will be able to take out the Gyarados on the following turn, but the Necrozma is able to come up and set up a Trick Room and knock out both the Ludicolo and the Kingdra, giving Joey the 4-0 victory over the Melbourne Rotoms. Alright, so taking a look at our conference breakdown, the big notes here is mainly just the Chimchargers are still in first place despite losing this week. I believe they are going to finish off the season in first place. Obviously, I think if the JIRACHEFS get like a 6-0 and the Chimchargers lose 6-0, I think the JIRACHEFS would be in first place, but that's a pretty unlikely scenario, so I'm pretty sure it's safe to say that the Chimchargers are going to take the main part of the season in first place. Due to the Shadows getting a win this week, on the flip side, it is going to put the Chew back in the number 16 spot, which obviously, they did have their one win, but the Victorian Shadows were also able to get their win, which is going to, at least give every team one win, and it is going to change up who is in last. Looking at some of the more relevant teams for playoffs, obviously, this stuff has been covered in the playoff picture, so if you want the super in-depth version, make sure to go check that out. But I believe both the Bewares and the Giantes have a fighting chance, depending on how some of the other matches go. I'm pretty sure every other team that isn't already above those two teams I mentioned is pretty much out. I don't think there is any way for any of those teams to get in at this point. And a couple teams have already like 100% secured their position. So again, if you want more information on that and more details, make sure to check out the playoff picture uploaded to this channel earlier in the week.
So looking at the divisions and the conference breakdown, I mean, it really comes down to playoffs at this point. But of course, it's always fun to look at the math that goes behind it. San Diego Chimchargers going 9-2. Of course, there are no teams at this point that have double digits when it comes to win. Every team still has their 1 digits when it comes to win. Of course, next week is the last week that can change that. MV has to win if he wants to get double digits when it comes to wins, getting 10 wins. This also applies to no one. Everyone else is either 8-3 and below, so that is going to mean that MV has the last opportunity to pick up a win next week and possibly get double digits. Of course, that's just for shits and giggles. He's not going to get any trophy for that, but it's always cool to see that. And yeah, the way things are looking, it's just interesting to see how these playoffs are going to work and really who's going to take it. Of course, keep in mind that a lot of your analysts have made bold predictions about these playoffs, so looking back at those and seeing if they made those right, checking out that video is always something interesting to see. But let's look at the league leaders, because of course, week 11, these aren't going to change so much, Number 1, we have the Nihilego and the Philadelphia Scissors, bringing that thing to 20 kills. Really solid, and only 6 deaths. Next up, though, that Mega Lopunny is right on that thing's tail with 17 kills and only 7 deaths. And lastly, the Detroit Steel Wings, of course, to no one's surprise, Thunderous Incarnate with 14 kills and 8 deaths. Really close behind, though, at number 4, though, is going to be that Mega Pinsir with 13 kills, Mega Altaria right behind it with 12 kills, as well as Haxorus, then Breloom, Cobalion, and Zygarde 50%, all with 11 kills, and the Necrozma with 10 kills. So we see here that that Joey is able to bring 2 Pokemon into the scene with Zygarde and Necrozma, so that's really interesting the way he's done that. And I mean, Cobalion being there, Breloom being there, really nothing surprises me at this point. I mean, we have 3 fighting types, it looks like. The Lopunny, the Breloom, Cobalion. The Dragons have actually gone down. I believe we only have 3 now with Mega Altaria, Haxorus, and Zygarde. And overall, I mean, it's really interesting to see that, you know, these Mons, really nothing surprised us. It's interesting to see, though, the fact that Nihilego and Ultra Beast has done really well of all the Ultra Beasts that were drafted. Of course, there are no other Ultra Beasts that are up here, and there are only 3 Megas. So, you know, Ultra Beasts, Mega stuff you think would get a lot of kills in leagues clearly can get outdone by just more offensive, lower class Mons. So, really interesting to see how that's going. I want to know what you think about the end of pretty much the league leaders. Of course, we only have next week to really finish off anything.
Something interesting to note about the league leaders is I think with this season in particular, a lot of the Mons that are at the top of the board aren't necessarily due to which Mon they are, but more so the coach. So for example, we've seen Chase do very well last season with 2 Mons towards the top, being the Crocodile and Cobalion. This season, you know, he has his Thunderous Eye up there, and a lot of people are surprised about Thunderous Eye because normally it's not like a huge kill leader, but you know, Chase has shown that he's able to take 1, maybe 2 Mons and get a lot of kills with them. Also, we see Chimpax Nihilego at the top. I believe his Mega Diancie was at the top or very close to the top in, I believe, Season 6 is when he had that Diancie. And then also Aster and MV both have Mons towards the top. And they've done well in kill leaders in either previous seasons of the GBA, whether it be D-League or regular, or just in other leagues in general. So yeah, I think a lot of what goes into the league leaders is the coaches using the Mons, but also the Mons themselves.
Alright, and that is going to be it. If you guys are hyped for the last week, so sad, the last week of the season, the regular season, of course, then let us know, because that is next week, week 12. We will see you guys next Wednesday. Peace.